Welcome to Studio Stories. My name is Ollie Patterson. I guess I've always been a creative musician. Started playing when I was 12 years old, started in clarinet, and it just came naturally. It just came very, very quickly. So by the time I was in ninth grade, I kind of switched over to saxophone. And by the 10th grade, I was touring Europe with one of the top bands in Germany. Just really loved it. Music came easy for me, started in saxophone. Took me about a week to learn how to play bass, about 2 weeks on guitar. Took about a week to learn drums proficiently. And so it just really came to me. So by 12th grade, my choices were, hey, I can go to a Berklee School of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, or I can go to West Point. I was accepted into West Point Military Academy. So I thought about it, and I said, you know what, I think I'll go music. So I decided to go music. So long story short, time goes on, I got married, kids, and I realized in a hurry that, this kind of where I was musically, it just wasn't happening in terms of bringing in money. So I had to go into the corporate world. So I went into telecommunications. And in that environment, things went very well for me. I was very analytical, creative. A lot of my approaches were different than, it was out of the box. And so those two things worked out very well for me. And I did, quite well corporately, and rose the corporate ladder quite meteorically, I'll put it that way. So here I am. Now I'm one of the top executives in Atlanta, and I'm overseeing a $600 million business unit. And there's a lot of consolidations, mergers. The company I was with got tied up in one of the largest scandals in corporate history. A lot of layoffs happening, just a lot of drama associated with that. And I decided, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go back to my passion and my heart, which is music. So I stepped away from corporate, resigned from all that, lots of money, stepped away from that, and I'm going to do music full time. So here I am off to the races doing music. And it just wasn't working. It just wasn't, I wasn't able to get the income. The gigs weren't coming, the money just wasn't there, and I just really just starved to death. I mean, I really became the poster child for Starving Artists Weekly. That was me. So myself personally, I've always been a person of faith. So I just prayed, and said, Lord, can you help me to do this? What do I need to do to make this music work? And it was almost an audible voice. But what came back to me was, do the things in your music that you did when you were in your corporate life. Implement those principles and your music will become successful. It's like a light switch, just came on. So I said, okay, what are some of the things that I did? So I really began to get really serious and business-minded about my music. I started looking at, clients the same way I did when I was in corporate America. I started doing thank you letters, sending out cards. I started asking them for, feedback, sending out feedback and surveys. And a lot of my clients, they were very responsive. They responded to my surveys. They gave me feedback. One example I'll just mention was the Hyde Museum. I remember the first time, now the Hyde Museum here in Atlanta, that is a very, very difficult space to get into as a musician. I mean, these guys are very, very selective about bringing in musicians for them. So first time I played, I sent them a feedback form, survey form, and I asked them to rank me in several categories from 1 to 10. 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And they wrote back lots of detail, lots of information, and they ranked me as 8s on every single category. And the 8 was pretty strong, but I kind of figured, you know what, I'd like to get better than that at the next time. So I took the feedback, incorporated what they had asked me to, based on what their responses were. And the second time they asked me to come back, which was about a year later, I sent them the same form. Please provide me with your information and feedback. And that feedback came back from the Hyde Museum as straight 10s all the way across the board. And so that was just one example of how, I just kind of implemented a feedback survey form with my clients so that I can get better at my craft, kind of hone what I do. One of the things that I also learned to do is, just as I did with corporate, as I connected with our clients, I began to connect with them from a music basis as well. I made it a point to determine, gosh, what is important to you? What is your outcome? What are you looking for? The guests that are coming, what's their age? What's their demographics? So that I can better serve and support them. And so what I found out, what happened was, as I'm out there performing, I'm connecting with their guests. I'm mobile, I'm walking around, I'm playing, I'm just being fun, interacting with them, just getting in their space and just really having just a personal experience with the individuals that were there. And so what would happen was, as the guests were leaving, they would say, man, that saxophone player, man, that guy was really good. And I would ask them, hey, who are your favorite artists? Who do you like? Well, I like Sinatra. I like Stevie Wonder. And they would tell me, real time as I'm performing. And so what I would do is I would cue up those songs and I would connect with all those individuals, on their level. So my clients would get just calls repeatedly, all during the week, months later. Man, that event you had, that saxophone player, man, that Ollie guy. And so, and what resulted from that is referrals, continual referrals, top of mind. All of the things that companies spend billions of dollars trying to get top of mind. I found out that those things were happening with my clients and stuff. And so again, I would make it fun. Another thing that I would do is I would position myself to be a consultant with my clients. So after doing so many events, a client would call me from a referral and they would say, well, I'm having an event, it's going to be at this space and we're looking to do this, blah, blah, blah. And then I was able to come back to them and say, well, you know what? This is your flow, then you really should consider adding this and doing this here because this will make this and this. So I was able to give consultative information and advice to my clients, and they really incredibly appreciated that. So what happened from there is on their next event, they will contact me, send me their agenda, and say, okay, Ollie, here's what we want to do. Tell us what you think. Will this work? Now all of a sudden, they're viewing me as one of their partners as opposed to just a musician for hire. So I really began to make everything all about them because the more I made it about them, the more they would make it about me. So what would happen is my referral business was just through the roof. I would get calls and calls, and it got to the point to where I had to bring in some other musicians because I just literally could not handle all the business myself. So I thought that was pretty cool. So again, I saw where I was top of mind to a lot of clients. I thought that was very cool. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, a lot of my musician buddies would give me a hard time. Hey, how are you getting all of these gigs? What are you doing? How is it that you are playing all the time? What's your secret? I said, well, I'll just share with you some of the things that I'm doing. So I'd meet with them for lunch, sit them down, just kind of go through a few things. And these guys, they're taking notes. And they would come back to me a month later, 2 months later, says, man, this works. I mean, this is really cool. Man, thank you so much. And so this happened several times. And I figured, you know what? Gosh, maybe, just maybe, there is some good stuff in here that maybe I should write a book. So that literally did lead me to the book I'm writing right now, which is titled Too Many Referrals, Too Much Business. So, And I just figured, well, being a creative, stepping out of the box a little bit, there's some things that I have learned. There's some things that have worked quite well. So I'm in the process of kind of putting that in book form. And I just really hope that it would help not only other musicians, but really help anyone who's looking to increase their business through, referrals and through recommendations, things like that. So in all that, I just want to share something that baffled me. So now I consider myself a very good musician. I mean, there are other sax players in this city that can really just run rings around what I do. I mean, but I consider myself a good musician. But what kind of baffled me is that in light of so many other great musicians out there, my clients view me as the best sax player in Atlanta, in the city. And I think that's pretty cool, And I think that whatever you do, whatever your business is, if you're a musician, if you're a carpenter, painter, it doesn't really matter, The goal really should be, how can you be the best person in the eyes of your client? And so that is something that has really just kind of caught my attention. And it's really possible for anybody in business to want to do that. So I would say, just really in wrapping things up, the main thing I would say is that if you're a creative, if you're a musician, just whatever your profession is, the number one thing is to make it about your client. You're going to go through some growth pains. There are going to be some things that you're going to learn. It's going to be some trial and error. There's going to be hit or miss. But if you can learn from all those things, put it together, make it about your client first, I'm telling you, that's going to resonate deep in their hearts. Because for the most part, most people, they make it either about them or they'll make it about a transaction. Okay, you're hiring me to play a saxophone. Okay, great. I'm going to play this saxophone, giving me the check. Thank you. You were good. Thank you very much. Have a check and go home. That is a transaction. And transactions are literally a dime a dozen. But if you make it about an experience, if you make it about a personal experience to them, that is something that will be deeply inscripted on their minds, emotionally and just mentally. They will remember that. You will stand out just by doing things such as that. So I would say to whatever your dream is, whatever your passion is, go for it. Go for it. Just step out there, make it happen. And also, if you're passionate about it, follow your passion. Follow your heart. Learn as you go, and in that process, all of the people say, money will follow eventually. So I found that personally with me as well. Money began to follow. I've been to give gigs out everywhere, and it's just fun. So that's kind of my story. Once again, welcome to Studio Stories, and I hope sometime I can be able to share with you at another time. Thank you, guys.